Hello, hello, everyone. It has been a while since we've done one of our live coffee chats with our champions. Today, we're going to be having Angelica on. Oh, and there Angelica is. There you go. Let's wait for her to join, and then we will get into it.
Hey, how's it going?
There you go. Good. How are you, Angelica?
I'm doing great. I just had oral surgery 2 weeks ago, so sorry if I'm like not opening as I'm used to.
Don't apologize, and thank you so much for, even though just to post surgery, that you're here with us. How are you feeling? Thank
I'm
you.
better. I had an infection, so I had another week of recovery. So I'm over it. I'm really over it. I want to get talking again, and I was hoping I'd be better, and I am better than before. So I'm excited to talk about this week's topic or this month's topic.
Well, honestly, we really, really, really appreciate you taking the time and energy to be here with us, especially post surgery. I know that when I had my dental removal surgery for my wisdom teeth as well, that I had an infection and that extended my recovery time for much longer than I expected. So I feel you there, but I'm really glad that you're well enough to be here, and it looks like you're doing much better. I know before you had posted that you weren't doing too well, so I'm glad you're doing better today.
So
So, yes, I know you mentioned you're excited to get into today's topic, so I will introduce it before we get into it. But today we're actually talking all about anxiety. It's something that has been coming up a lot with our parents and our students. It's something that's been a request, frequent asked question as well. Like, what are some strategies and tips and things like that? So, we're going to be chatting all things anxiety today, especially as it relates to learning disabilities and ADHD. And before we really get into it, just a quick note that, of course, these coffee chats are always intended to disseminate information, to cultivate conversation and dialogue around uh, not special, but important topics around LDs and ADHD. And we'll be doing that today regarding anxiety, especially. But what we also put together these coffee chats for is in a donation effort to keep our programming going. And in a lot of our programming, actually, we do talk quite a bit about anxiety and anxiety management. So I'm excited to get into today's topic as well. But yeah, if anyone is interested in donating to keep our programs going at LDAYR, and that includes our social skills program and our SOAR program, which is our transition to high school and post-secondary program, I would encourage you, if you're willing and able, to please check out our donation link at the link in our bio, and you can make a donation there. I will also include our link here in the comments of where you can go to donate. So there's that pin. Wonderful. All right, Angelica, thanks so much again for being here with us. I'm going to quickly just introduce myself, or I'll let you go ahead first. How about that? Feel free to introduce yourself, your relationship to LDAYR, and then we'll get going.
sounds good. Hey everyone, it's Angelica here again. I am full-time in the construction industry as a project administrator. I'm an adult dyslexic, and part-time I have a small little business running, and also I podcast and I do photography. I do a lot of many things. And the relationship I have with the LDA YR is that as an adult dyslexic, I've always wanted to share my experiences to everybody that's been affected or people around them who have been affected with a learning disability. And hopefully they can learn from my experience and learn that, everything that I've done in my life, I was able to do it just like anybody else can, and send that message that anything's possible.
Beautiful, Angelica. Thank you for that. Just a quick note, Angelica is one of our lovely LDAYR champions. It's a program that we have for persons with learning disabilities or ADHD to work with us to engage in special events like this and to share their story, and to really spread awareness around learning disabilities and ADHD. So if you are someone who has an LD or ADHD and is interested in becoming one of our Voices Champions, please feel free to reach out to us. All the information is there on our website. We could always use people. So thank you, Angelica, for being a part of this program and for always showing up and showing out for our coffee chats. I really appreciate it. So we're glad to have you.
Thank you.
For myself, I started working with LDAYR February 2020, just before COVID hit, as a full-time program coordinator. And then I transitioned my role into more of a consulting kind of role where I was working more so on program development. And now I'm simply volunteering with the organization doing these coffee chats. So that's me. I'm a teacher by trade, so I'm a high school teacher in Toronto, English, religion, social sciences, and ESL. That's me. And Angelica, I know you are familiar with our format here in our coffee chats. We usually start off with our 2 truths and a lie. Just so our audience members can get to know us a little bit. So I know we shared a bit about ourselves, but moving on to some like more so quirky things, we usually just play 2 truths and a lie at the beginning of our coffee chats. And then if anyone who is here watching with us, feel free to please join in, share whichever ones you think are the truths, which one you think are the lies, and then we will reveal. So Angelica, would you like to go first or would you like me to go first?
I'll go first. The first one is I drink 4 cups of coffee a day. I love pizza. And oh my gosh, I'm trying to think of the other one now. I'm always listening to music.
And let me ask you, Angelica, as a podcast host herself, do you also listen to podcasts as well, or is it mostly music? Oh, actually,
Yeah, it's a mixture of both.
Okay.
Which you kind of gave away a freebie there that is the truth, right?
Sorry about that. So for those of you watching, which one do you feel is the truth? No, which one do you feel is the lie? 2 truths and 1 lie. Which one do you feel is the lie? So we had music, pizza,
3 cups of coffee a day.
4 cups of coffee a day. You know what? I'm gonna say the coffee one. I feel like maybe it's like a trick answer, and maybe it's like 3 cups or 3.5 or something like that. If anyone wants to share in the comments which one you think it is. Hi, Andres the Realtor. I've actually seen your social media pages quite a bit on my accounts. Actually, I think we have quite a few mutual friends and people in our lives. So hello, I'm glad to meet you, Andres. Santa 1932 says 4 cups of coffee is true. All right, would you like to do the big reveal?
Yeah. So the actual lie is 3 cups of coffee. I don't have that much coffee. I usually tend to have 1, and it's usually midday, and I'm good to go.
Okay. So a woman who runs on her own fuel.
Pretty much. Now that I have a 5-month-old, it's just yeah.
Do you have anything in the morning, or you just go straight into
I
life?
go straight into it, and usually around this time or 5 o'clock, that's when I have a coffee to kind of break it down in the middle, I guess, if that makes any sense. Which is interesting because like even though I'm tired all day, and with the baby, it's like, oh my gosh, like when do you sleep for 8 hours? Because I'm not liking this 10 a.m., 10 p.m. wake up, 3, 4, sometimes 6, 8, 9. So I gotta have that midday coffee.
You're doing it all with just the one,
Just the one, because I don't want to get too much in me, because then becomes like that addiction, right? So.
Right. And speaking of anxiety, are you the kind of person too where coffee actually increases anxiety for you, or?
Yeah, I've seen that happen, especially during my college days, a lot, because I remember in college I was drinking about 5 to 6 coffees a day. Like it was nonstop because I was working full time at night and then going to school daytime. So I had to have the coffee with me in order to make sure I get my 4 hours of sleep, and then go back to that routine from 8 to 5 school, and then I think it was 9. Yeah, it was 9 p.m. all the way to 6 in the morning working. So there's not much time to sleep when you're pulling in a double duty there.
For sure. And I know
Yeah.
that, yeah, yeah. And I know, speaking of anxiety, I started drinking coffee as well in university later, though, in my fourth or fifth year. And at that point, I remember, like, of course, learning about myself and how I function with coffee and whatnot. And I quickly realized that coffee right in the morning, same thing, I've started not to do it because it tends to give me jitters, especially because I don't really eat much in the morning. That
Yeah.
straight, and my body's like, and sometimes it's like, yeah, okay, we're getting into it, but sometimes it's like, I really don't need that much right now. I'm just sitting at a desk. So for sure, speaking of anxiety, I think that's definitely, if you're a coffee drinker, not something to monitor within yourself and cultivate that awareness and mindfulness of yourself of how it's affecting you, because it is a very real thing.
Yeah.
Wonderful, Angelica. So to answer kind of what you said, not weird at all. The one in the afternoon is something I've transitioned to as well. So for myself, two truths and a lie, I'm going to use one of my classics that I've been using here on our coffee chats. One, I love dogs. Two, I am baking cupcakes tonight. And the third one, I'm going to go ahead and say that I love listening to podcasts. Just riffing off of yours, Angelica.
I would say the baking. Are you really baking tonight?
Perhaps. Our lovely people, our lovely spectators, what do you think? Which one is the lie? So we had dogs. I love dogs. Love them. Dogs, baking, and I love listening to podcasts. Oh, Angelica, I think that we lost you for a moment. It's just paused. Sure, it's just a connection issue. Should probably be back soon. Yeah. Hey everyone, we're just in the middle of playing our two truths and a lie game for the spectators here on our live to get to know us a little bit. And it looks like Angelica has. Oh, there you go.
All
Hey,
right.
that's okay. Is everything okay?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Just a connection issue, I'm sure. Technology. All right, so we have Santa 1932 here who says, "Love listening to podcasts is true." Well, Santa 1932, you are correct. I do love listening to podcasts, just like Angelica here. I also am making cupcakes
Oh,
tonight. Uh-huh. I have my niece's birthday tomorrow. She's having a sushi themed birthday party, which I'm pretty excited about, and I get to make some sushi themed cupcakes for it. And the lie is that I love dogs. I'm so sorry, my dog people. I do not. But I'm getting better as I get older, I will say. I hope by the time I hit my middle ages that I will be free of the fear of dogs. I'm hoping that's the goal. We're getting... Hi, Bridget. Is it your birthday, Angelica?
no.
Oh, happy! Oh, my niece. Thank you, thank you. I will let her know that you said that. Thank you so much. Happy birthday to her. Beautiful. Okay, so since this is our coffee chat, Angelica, what are you drinking today?
I'm doing a peach tea from Tim Hortons.
I've never tried one of those. Is it good?
It's pretty good. It is cheaper than getting, a tea from Starbucks.
You're calling me out here, Angelica, because although it is in a house mug, I do have some coffee in here. Opposing team members here, Starbucks and Tim Hortons. Cheers! Happy coffee chat.
Cheers.
All right, to all my lovely people at home, we're about to get into it. Feel free to grab a coffee yourself. For today's coffee chat, we did mention that we are chatting all about anxiety, especially as it relates to learning disabilities and ADHD. If anyone has any further questions that you'd want us to chat about that we aren't addressing, that we haven't come up with so far, please do feel free to plop it in the comments. We would love to respond, hear any questions, comments, strategies that you want to include in our conversation. That'd be very much appreciated, and we would love to just get your contributions. So feel free. So just getting into it, as a general sort of feeling within yourself, Angelica, how do you feel about tests and exams, just generally?
In general, it's been a challenge. It's difficult. A lot of anxiety and stress that comes with it, especially growing up doing quizzes and all that. I tend to blank out and I just don't know what the answers are. You're overthinking things too much. But I feel like the reason for that for myself is because we want to excel and be successful, and I put a lot of pressure wanting to aim for that, 60 or 100% depending what it is. So as a child it was very difficult, and knowing that I have a learning disability, all I wanted was just pass, just pass it, because who wants to repeat a grade, right? Who wants to repeat a course? Even though when I got into my college years, and especially high school is the same thing, and even though I had accommodations and stuff, um, it was a lot harder because again, you feel like, oh, now I have these accommodations, and now you're feeling like the person, even though they have nothing to do with the test, they're just there to help you out. You just feel that anxiousness and stress of what's the relation of this person beside me helping with this exam. So that's what I went through a lot. But when I got to college, that's when reality hit, that there was no accommodations, there was no extra time. So my anxiety became even worse, thinking of how am I supposed to succeed and excel, right? Because you're so used to having the accommodations, you're so used to having the open book exams, you're used to having the extra help with you and all the technology that comes with it. But going into college, I feel like there wasn't enough prep for myself going into it. It's the reality. They're pretty much cutthroat. Like, you've got an hour or two, whatever it is, and no open book depending on your courses that you're taking. Some of them were open book, which was really good. Well, then again, the material was really hard for anybody to memorize. And even till this day, as an adult, for those who have adults with a learning disability, when I do all my safety certifications, it's when I go in there and I'm by myself in this room, you as much as you take notes and you go home and read them, and then you go back in the next day, because usually our courses are either 2 days or 3 days. um I still get that anxiety. I get that feeling of like I'm gonna fail, and it sucks. I hate that feeling. And you pay money into these courses, and sometimes your job is paying for these courses, and it's just one time and then it comes out of your pocket. So it's frustrating that I still go through this, and I'm trying to figure out different ways of how to do it. So um, in a nutshell, yeah, I do not like tests or quizzes. I wish there was something else like where I can show you hands-on of how to do things. Like, especially taking an architectural program in college, there's so many little things to learn. There's like HVAC and mechanical engineering, there's electrical, there's plumbing, and how am I supposed to remember everything, right? And then there's like the building code, which is 2 6-inch binders that you're carrying around. So this way you're not like, you got to know the whole function of a building and a house, and fire escapes, the proper lighting, the framing, and everything. So going into college was like, oh my gosh, it was overwhelming. Again, no combinations, no extra time. It's more like, okay, this course is going to be open book. You can bring it in, but how do you prep yourself for open book? So I had to learn how to use post-it notes, tags, highlight things, go back to my midterm exams and what I've learned, and kind of figure, okay, is it going to be on the test? But there is some professors who will tell you this is going to be on the test, this is going to be on the exam, this is going to be on the exam. So it helps a lot that way. But again, for someone with a learning disability, it's really hard. It's too much stress and anxiety.
And I do want to specify, well, firstly, thank you for sharing, Angelica, and all those different points of how you've experienced test and exam anxiety at the different portions of your education journey, both in school and now in your adult learning, both at school, college, and then in adult training settings. So I think that's important to note because they do occur in various settings, even as an adult in the workplace. And I worked at an electrical company throughout university, and I was just helping with some HR assistants, and I would do a lot of the like safety training,
Yeah.
admin, and stuff like that. And you're right, it's can be a really high pressure environment because it's just that thing of like you need to just get this done for your job and keep it pushing, right? And that's not necessarily a conducive environment for everyone to actually effectively, first of all, learn, but then also pass. So I wanted to ask you a question regarding that, but before I ask you, I do want to specify just for people watching that today's coffee chat, I'm sorry I didn't specify this before, it was totally my bad on my part, but it is specifically surrounding anxiety, on anxiety surrounding tests and exams is specifically what we're talking about today, not just anxiety in general. So anxiety surrounding tests and exams. But I did want to ask you, Angelica, so being in that adult training environment, what do you think can be done or added or taken away to the process of adult training, just items, for example, in your work setting where you have a lot of safety training and things like that? What can be done in those environments to create for a more conducive learning for persons with learning disabilities and ADHD? Because the reality is there are a ton of people in the construction workforce and otherwise elsewhere that have learning disabilities and ADHD. I see it in my personal life, how many people in my close circle who had IEPs and have LDs and ADHD and who had IEPs growing up and have LDs and ADHD, where those accommodations, they don't transfer necessarily into the workplace, but they still are expected to take the trainings in the exact same way. So what are some things that you feel can be done in that setting?
I feel like it needs to be open, but then again, like I could tell you from my experience when I had to do a certification working on heights and being safe on top of roofs, or it's mainly on top of any flat roof or slope roof. And being the only female there, you see all these men, yeah, they've been in the trade for probably more than 10 years, and this test you have to do every single year. And I understand when you're in that particular situation, you tend to know what to expect. But yeah, I've met other people from different trades who are like, yeah, I went into the trades because I have a problem with English, or I have a problem with writing and math and everything. So, but I feel like too, there's like that society, that type of culture where, you know, yeah, it's very cutthroat. You probably seen it and you've heard stories when you were working. Like they don't care who you are; it's cutthroat. Like they'll call you names by one, two, and three, and four, and five, right? And it's just that's the culture that it is. But I don't see how, if we were open with it, could it help other people? Yes, but unfortunately, these guys will get bullied once they're leaving there. Like, it's hard to keep it open, especially in an environment like that's so male dominant. And I've seen it so much in working in the industry for about almost 5 years now. You're just like, wow. Like some people are open to it and accommodating, but then there's some others that are just going to bully you. And then what can you do about it? Like, when do you step in? So it's really difficult to answer that question, but I feel like they are pretty reasonable when it comes to doing the quizzes. I know when I did it, it was a 2-day program. You do all the theory in one day, then you do the quiz the next day. And yeah, it can be a lot. There's a lot of pressure. Like you would have to come home and study and make sure you get all your, little points there so you can memorize it. But then the next day, there's no open book. They did it together. We had like these little press buttons, like it was so cool that it was all Bluetooth connected and it had all our initials on it. So we would go through the question together and say, hey, okay, question 1, what is the height restriction that you should be on a flat roof, slope roof, and et cetera, et cetera. So it's like everyone's kind of punching their answers together, and you'll know if you get it right or wrong, right? Because it'll say your initial or number that you have that you're given privately. So that's not bad. But then there's some other people that will help you. When I did my first course of joint health and safety, that teacher was really helpful because he knows that there's going to be different people from different learnings. So it all depends on the person who's teaching the course, right? But could they be open about it and say whoever has a learning disability can get this X amount of time? Not really. I don't, it's kind of difficult, you know what I mean? Because again, it's that society, that cutthroatness of like, oh, I've heard guys on the job say, oh my God, he's so stupid, he can't write, or he's so stupid, he can't read,
Yeah.
but that's the society, that's the culture that they've created for so many years. So, and it just keeps going and going, and it sucks when I hear that. I know some people that do have, and they could come to me openly to speak about or vent about their certain things, but I like how some teachers that I've been through different courses for, they really make it just very simple for you. They make it easy and they try to help you understand. But some of the stuff is open book. But for those who are in college or university, you don't get that luxury either to get the extra time. And sometimes they don't know what to do with somebody who's a learning disability. Because again, when I shared my experience before, they put me back into like I don't know English. And then I wasted so much time and money just to get to regular English and fall for it, because why am I learning the basics again if I already speak English? Like, this was classes for international students who have no like English ability besides saying hi, how are you, where's the bathroom, where's the cafeteria, that's it. So that's a tough question, and that's maybe something where, you know, someone in that council of construction can help these people really go through these tests. But, I've heard so many things from different unions, like, oh, if they speak the same language in one group, they'll do it in the same language. So, yeah, if they speak Spanish, they're going to do it in Spanish. If they speak Portuguese, they'll do it in Portuguese. If they speak Italian, they'll all do it in Italian. You know what I mean? So it's easier for them just to get whatever they need and get to work. So it's a tough question, and it's hard to answer because, again, the male dominance in that society of culture too, the way it's been brought up, right?
Hmm. And I think you're right. It is complex and really layered because you have the culture of it, and then you have what is being done that upholds the culture. How is anything that attempts to kind of disrupt that culture actually received? And like you're saying, it's not often received well. Like
Yeah.
thinking settings, if we do give workers an opportunity to disclose whether they have a learning disability or ADHD or anything like that, to offer accommodations, will many people even step forward to do that because of the way that the culture is, right? I don't know that they would. So it's a very layered.
Exactly. And I've had two people come up to me in my own team say, hey, I can't fill this out for my vacation for the union. Okay, I'll help you out, no problem. Because I know I feel bad because I know their situation that they're in. So the best thing I can do is help the people around me that need it. And I'm happy when they're so grateful for that, because I guess other people at different job sites may look at them like, you can't fill out the basic information. They're like, no, I can't. So to me, helping them is doing a lot. And, at least they can say, wow, I had confidence in Angelica to help me fill out this paperwork. You know what I mean? So that's the
Yeah,
least I can do.
right. And that says a lot about you and how you're able to just cultivate that safe space for them to be able to approach you and ask you a question like that. Because you're right, the response, I'm sure, within the culture like that, it's not necessarily always received well. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm glad that at least, but it shouldn't be left up to chance. You know what I mean? It shouldn't be left up to, oh, I have a sweet coworker who will help me out. Like there
Yeah.
needs to be systematically in place, and I think that's something for HR representatives to think about too. What kind of things can be put into place to just make for more of an inclusive environment when it comes to anything learning in the industry and otherwise things like filling out forms, stuff like that. So for sure. Thank you for that, Angelica. That was really insightful to hear kind of your firsthand experiences with that. I appreciate it. So moving on, we did want to chat about different sorts of techniques that you potentially have developed over the years, because it sounds to me like you've done quite a bit of figuring out really how to learn best for yourself so that you could tackle things independently given your experiences. So, I know you mentioned quickly a few things, but if you'd like to elaborate, what are some techniques that have worked for you when it comes to studying or learning for tests and exams?
So now as an adult though, again, most of these courses are done in 2, 3 days. You do 2 days of theory or 1 day theory, and then the next day is a quiz. So what I tend to do while I'm learning the material, I tend to highlight things because sometimes, believe it or not, most of these teachers will say, "Hey, this is going to be on the exam." So I tend to highlight that, uh, to highlight what's important. I never used to highlight my books because I felt like you have to keep them clean, but now I just highlight everything because I know it's important. And since you're paying for the course, you're just like, I need to do whatever it takes. So sticky notes, tags. I don't use index cards like I used to. I just stick with the basics of highlighting the important stuff, paying attention, and sticky notes, those posted tags, those little flags that you see with the arrows and stuff. That's so helpful and useful, especially if they do announce if it's an open book. Then yeah, I'm going crazy with the tags and the highlighting. That's the only thing, and just keep really pay attention because a lot of these teachers I noticed when I've done so many courses in the past 4 years, it's like, oh, this is going to be on the test. This is going to be on the test. This is going to be on the test. This section's going to be there. So you just really got to make sure you're highlighting everything or writing down in your notes. Once I get home from a long day, then you're just like, now it's different because now you're an adult and you have to obviously take care of your family. So now I have to set a time, at least 3 hours, that I have to study all this material and try to ask myself questions and try to come up with ways to organize my notes. So this way I know, okay, if this is important in the exam, what do I call it? How do I memorize it? Which is really hard and tough because, again, you're only given such a short amount of time, and then on the next day you're going in reading a little last bit of the material that we couldn't go over, and then you've got the exam. So they usually give you about 3 hours or two, depending on what the course is, which is really nice. But again, it's that little bit of time that you got to maximize and try to input as much information into your brain, which again can be difficult because sometimes the next day when I write these tests or exams, you're just like, oh my God, I don't remember anything because you're just putting yourself so much pressure. So what I tend to do is take a couple breaths, walk around because they usually give us a break before we write the exam. Unless consensus say, okay, no, we don't want a break and we want to go straight into it because everyone either has to get back to work or needs to go back to the office. So if there is a break given, I usually tend to walk around, just, clear my brain out. Because if you keep reading over and over again, you're not going to remember it during the exam. So I tend to just refresh my mind, just say, okay, everything's going to be okay as long as I pass. And I try to see, okay, if there's going to be 60 questions, I'm going to try to aim for 35 so I know I pass because they really don't care if you get 100%. They just care that you pass so you can move on with your life within your job. So that's pretty much a bonus. But throughout high school and college, there was a lot of index cards where I had to maximize, instead of carrying on and lugging a book, just write down the most important things. I know some of my courses were open books, so again, take advantage of the posted notes, the posted tags, and some cue cards just for extra notes, just in case, or some graphs. And then I try to put that in my notebook, so this way I'm just going off by the notebook instead of the textbook. And through my elementary years, I had a lot of combinations. So it was a lot of open book, but I had a lot extra time. I remember given like even 4 hours to do a little quiz, even though I would do it within 45 minutes to an hour, because I just wanted to get through the easy stuff. So what I tend to do is go through the easy questions and then go back to the hard ones. I'm not going to spend 10 minutes on a question that I don't know about. So I always try to do that, and I've always done that because a teacher told me in high school where they're like, just focus on the easy questions. Once you're done and you're confident with your easy questions, then you can move on to the hard ones. So what I did though, when I did the easy ones, I made sure I counted. Okay, so if the test is out of 30, make sure these easy ones hit my 15 mark, and then the rest is just 50-50. So that's what I tend to do. Just go with the easy, count how much I need, and then go back to the rest. Because at least I can say I pass, and then the rest is all bonus.
Takes a lot of pressure off, I'm sure.
Yeah, too much.
Did you say too much?
Too much pressure sometimes. Yeah, it's just crazy how my mind works. And so many things are going into your brain. You're like, okay, so I got to 15. I need another 10, so I can get this percentage mark. And you're doing all these calculations that you don't really need to. And
Like
I
the
look, you,
word.
yeah, and you tend to look around you, and everyone's like, you got the smartest person in the class finish in like 20 minutes, and you're like, oh my gosh, okay, enough pressure. Because then again, the people around you put this pressure on you. You don't want to be the last person, especially when you're in elementary school and in high school, because then they're gonna be like, why did it take you so long? Fortunately, that's what happens. So I tend to, and then you tend to rush after because you're seeing all these people just get up and hand in their exams, which really sucks because a person with a learning disability, there's already enough distractions. You're already distracted of the fact that you got to get through the easy questions and making sure that you've counted, at least you've got, okay, 50% of it, I'm passing. No, on the rest, we got to figure it out to get the extra bonus, right?
Yeah.
And then you have to go back to your hard questions. Okay, like, what is it? Do I guess it? Do I not? So there's so much happening. And then you've got, you know, for me in school, if a teacher was like reading or she's flipping a pages in a book or you're hearing the pen on the table, then that distracts me because now I'm losing my focus. And now you're trying to figure out, okay, how do I just make sure this classroom is quiet? And that's why I got used to so much of combinations in elementary and high school that you were given like very quiet classes, but then you hear the people walking through the classroom. I don't know if I have ears like a hawk or something, but sometimes you hear like the littlest things and that's distracting you.
Yeah.
So a person with a learning disability, we tend to work better in a quiet, very quiet space because there's not much distraction. But it's so weird because when we do assignments, we can work with music, and music helps us focus and get that question. We can work with the TV on in the background, and it helps us focus. So it's weird, but when it's a test, because there's so much pressure and it's a test, when you call anything a quiz, a test, an exam, then all this pressure build up. It's like we're carrying the world over our shoulders. So it's crazy. If I had music, maybe it would help me calm down during my exam, but then am I focusing on the exam? We don't know. I've never tried that. And we weren't even allowed to do it.
I was gonna say, I don't think it would even be permitted in most schools.
Yeah, because then they'll think like you're giving away answers through audio,
Right. Right.
right? So, but when you get to college, it's very quiet. All you
Yeah.
hear is pencils and erasers and markers and everything, but I hear every little single detail. So I couldn't focus because you got one guy who's like nervous, probably hitting the chair or something or whatever. And then you got someone who's just like going through the pages because they don't know where to start. So all of that is a distraction. A lot of people don't understand that. And it's a huge distraction for us.
And then sometimes you have teachers and professors at the front chatting away. That too.
Oh
That
God.
so much, so much. Oh,
Yeah.
I think staring at them like just so in their conversation, I can't focus.
Yeah, exactly. You're hearing about what happened to Buddy like last night. Oh yeah, we went out, we went to this fancy restaurant, it was great. Well, I don't care. Just stop. But I can say comparing to adult classes when I go through my certifications and stuff, which I've done a lot, I felt like it's total silence. You see the first two guys because they've done that. You have to do this stuff every single year, and every year for some reason for me, does it get easier? I don't know. I don't think so. You're just like, oh, I gotta do this exam, this test. Like you know it all, but for some reason, I feel like they change the words around every year, so I don't know. Or sometimes it is the same test.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but at least it's super quiet. There's nobody fidgeting. Even though if you got one smoker who hasn't had his like 10 smokes already because he's in a classroom environment, yeah, he's fidgeting. But the thing is, I feel like these adult classes, they're not like 60 questions like you're in school. They're like 30 or 15, and that's it. Get out the door. Because at least you got the most important points out. So it's different.
Mm-hmm. And I think that there's something to say about like background noise versus um, like in a completely quiet space when you just have the pops of noises going on. Because I know for me, I used to assume that I need a super quiet space to get anything done in terms of school. And then I had a friend in university who introduced me to going to cafes to work. And I remember telling him, like, no, it doesn't work for me. Like, I'll go with you, but I'm probably just going to sit there and be distracted, whatever. And then I remember we went, and I was like, wow, this is exactly what I need. Because in a quiet space, yes, there's such minimal noise, but the minimal amount of noise that is there, it really, like, rings, right? Because it's the only sound in that completely quiet environment. So it's a pen drop is so much louder than it would be in a space where you have people making coffee and conversations going and music in the background, where it all kind of drowns out and just becomes a like background noise. So I encourage you, if you're the type of person who hasn't tried, who is stuck married to one and hasn't tried the other of either working in a quiet space or working in a space with background noise, try it out and see if it works for you, because they are two very different experiences and work for different ways and reasons. Try it out, see if it works for you.
Yeah, exactly. Try it out.
Yeah, I did want to say regarding the pressure surrounding exams and tests, quizzes, anything that then becomes attached to that title, how much pressure it comes with. And I think a lot of it is because of just how tests and exams are, how they exist in schools and the amount of pressure that is associated with them in schools. Like, we have the big OSSLT tests that impact your an EQAO testing that impact your ability, for example, to graduate in high school. Then you have, unfortunately, like, tests often account for a lot of the weight of your grades, tests and exams. So I think there's that added pressure there. But the idea is that there's a huge performative aspect and a huge valuing on the outcome on the outcome when it comes to tests. So that performance and that outcome focus, I think, is where a lot of the pressure comes from. And for something that I do with my students as a teacher now is, before one of the first things that we work on before ever having a major test or major exam is how to study, because we go our whole lives taking tests, exams, quizzes, and very rarely are people sat down to learn, okay, well, how do you actually prepare for this thing? So that's something that I like to incorporate into my practice. And one of the key kind of elements of when I take the students through the lesson is shifting our emphasis when it comes to testing and exams, shifting the emphasis from performance and outcome to learning. Tests and exams, yes, because of what they're made to be, are a really high pressure thing, but they're also a really beautiful opportunity to learn and consolidate your learning. And that and just that shift in focus, I think, can offer people just more of that awareness of, like, okay, when I am preparing for this thing, has the way I prepared actually helped me to learn, or has it and understand, or has it simply helped me to retain the information to memory, and then it's gone after, as soon as I'm done the exam, right? So has the strategies I've taken to prepare actually helped me understand and learn, or has it only helped me to memorize for the short term? And oftentimes I find that our strategies, depending on who we are, they help merely to things to memory because of the emphasis that's put on the outcome of an exam. But if we shift that focus to learning, that whole repertoire of strategies on how we prepare. So for myself, I know that cue cards are something that really helped me as well in university, because in university, like, it's such a mobile, it's not for everyone, but I guess in my experience, it was a very mobile experience where I was constantly on the go, from this class to my part-time job to another class to this, that. So I was constantly moving. So it was helpful to have those quick, those quick points on me that I could pull out anywhere and look at as I was going. But I remember doing that and it being very helpful for my memory's sake. But then when I began shifting my perspective around all things education, I began shifting the emphasis to learning as opposed to just simply studying for memory. And those cue cards, same strategy, but just seeing them in a different light, I was able, or seeing the process in a different light helped me to use those cue cards in a completely different way. So one of the things I always emphasize to my students in that lesson that we go through of like how do we actually study is the strategy to learn as if you're going to have to teach that information. So this is something I would encourage anyone to try out when it comes to testing and exams. When you are going through the information, using your cue cards, using whichever strategies help you to learn, not just to memorize, use all of those strategies, but with the lens of, I'm going to have to teach this to somebody. And that helps you to understand the information in a way that makes sense to you and your experience and your prior knowledge, so that you can repeat it back and explain it to someone else, if that makes sense. So I always encourage students, like, I don't care who you have to try and explain it to you, whether it's yourself, your dog, your stuffed animal, just your friend, whoever, but get someone or something, even if it's speaking out loud to yourself, and pretend you're teaching this concept, this thing, this book, whatever. Pretend you're teaching it to that person, even if it is just to yourself and you're saying it out loud, and see how your brain begins to see what your brain begins to come up with to help you begin to really learn and understand. Because in order to teach someone something, you yourself have to really understand that thing. You really, really do. Or else there's nothing that's going to come out of you to teach the other person, right? So you'll start to, that will help you yourself to begin to cultivate an awareness of, okay, what helps me to understand this, so that I can then bring it to someone else. And then that helps you to really understand what are the different strategies that help you to best learn, when you see it as, I'm learning this to teach someone else. So for example, with the cue card experience, I used to just read them, repeat them, highlight, write again, read again. And then I found when I began to try and explain it to someone in my space, then I found, okay, I don't just need to read it and repeat it and write it again, because that really isn't helping me to fully understand, but it helped me to then use my cue cards in a different way. Hello everyone who is liking and waving and joining. It helped me to start using it in a way where instead of reading it over and over, then it became what it was, right? It became a cue card. Like I would look at it, try to come up with look at the key points, and then as I'm explaining, if I need to reference it again just as a cue, I reference it again. But as opposed to just using it as almost like a book where I'm bringing it out wherever I go and I'm reading it, I'm just using it now as a prompting device when I'm explaining it to someone else or to myself out loud, or even on a voice note. Sometimes I would do that, things like that. So you begin to use these tools and strategies, even the ones you already have, in a different light, because seeing studying as a form of learning, and then as a form of learning to teach other people, you begin to then really figure out what works for you. So I'm sorry, that was very long-winded, but I did want to share that strategy because it's been very, 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 very effective for me in my life, and kind of acted as a springboard to understanding who I am as a learner.
Mm-hmm.
Hello to everyone who is recently joining. Before I move on to the next question, though, Angelica, is there anything you wanted to mention?
No.
So I know we're already at the 4:53 mark, so I will present you with one last question, and then we will wrap up. How does that sound?
Sounds good.
So, this is a fun one. Do you have any rituals or rewards that you do for yourself after an exam or test as kind of like a treat?
I just go home and cry. No, I'm kidding. Actually, in the adult classes, the good thing is they give you your marks right away. They're not waiting like in school where it's like next week you're getting your marks. They actually do it right on the spot, and then you're just waiting for him to say, him or her, like, all right, you passed, right? So when it does happen, it's I obviously the anxiety and the stress and the world that I carried over my shoulders just vanish. And I tend to, treat myself with some little dessert here and there because, it's hard as you get older and you still have this learning disability. You're still trying to figure out, okay, how am I going to do this? How am I going to do this? Like now that I'm going to be switching careers within the same company, but I'm kind of actually scared, like, okay, now I have to go into Ryerson doing night school X amount of days a week and try to get the certification. So you're kind of like, I'm building up this anxiety already, which sucks because you know yourself that the complications that you do have and you don't know what you're going into. So now I'm trying to figure out, okay, what are different ways? Like, should I start reading something to kind of grasp information and what do I do? So that's what's scary. That's what's coming up for me. And, again, it's because you're going now to a Ryerson University Institute and hopefully like, you'll get in. Um, there's a lot of stress behind it because you do want to excel into your career. So I'm trying to learn about myself more and what else I can do to gain that confidence and try to just, let things happen for what it is. But, during college, when I found out that I was done school, I would just have a good meal because unfortunately, you don't eat the day of the exam, depending if it's in the morning, if it's in the third period, fourth period, whatever it is. You just don't eat.
Yeah.
And working full time at night from Monday to Friday, and then going to school full time during the day, I didn't have much time to really eat. I would have dinner and barely a breakfast. So if my exam was in the morning, I would make sure I have a good meal because I knew I was done with it. And it was done and over with, and hoping for the best. So I usually treat like back in college, high school, I didn't really treat myself, but in college, I would definitely treat myself to a good meal because, you build up with all this anxiety and stress for an exam because you just don't know, are you going to pass this or do I have to come back and repay? Because I did repeat math like 3 times in college and that was brutal. And I found out it was because the type of teaching style that was given to me. And if these professors don't keep in mind about everybody else in the room and don't pretend to think that everybody knows what they're doing, then I wouldn't have this problem, but repeating math 3 times and paying $300 every time was pretty hurtful because you're just like, why am I not grasping this? So I usually, it's hard because not every teacher you're gonna get is perfect or the greatest, but that's what I used to do to treat myself is just get in a good meal before I get back to work.
I love that. I absolutely love that. And I think that's an important thing to note as well is being mindful before going into a test or exam of what you are consuming. Is that coffee, like, are you really tired? Like, do you really need that coffee? Maybe you do, but maybe it's just going to bring on or increase your anxiety. So being mindful of that, of what you're consuming and how that's actually going to affect your experience going into a test or exam. I remember a teacher in high school let us know that, or gave us the advice to always eat a banana before an exam.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's what I share with my students as well. And because it's supposed to help your brain. I don't know. I'm totally gonna butcher the science of this. I don't know, but it's supposed to help you make connections in your brain faster. I don't know, but always eat a banana. So that also creates like a ritual for yourself, right? If let's say that is a practice you take on, then it becomes almost like a comfort thing of like, okay, that ritual, that comfort that comes with the ritual. So yeah, banana. I always do that too. I remember in university as well, we would have these very, very late night exams at like 10, sometimes 11. And I remember on those long late night ones, because you're right, like I would spend all day not even thinking about food because I'm so focused, which is not something I recommend. But yeah, I would spend all day just like laser focused. And then I would tell myself, like, after this exam, I'm going to get a burrito. and that would help me to get through it and get through the day and have something to look forward to. So there is a merit in looking forward to a treat after. It helps you to get through what can sometimes be a really scary day.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, Angelica. Well, I'm gonna wrap up here. I don't know if Instagram still does that thing where it cuts you off at an hour. Do you happen to know?
I'm not sure. Maybe. I think it still does.
Okay, so in case we get wrapped up in a couple seconds, I wanted to just thank you so much again for coming on, especially after your surgery. Really, really, really appreciate it. I'm glad to see that you're doing better. I had a wonderful, wonderful time chatting with you, and I learned a lot. So thank you.
Likewise, thank you so, so much.
Always, always. Angelica, can't wait to have you on again. See you for the next one. And to anyone who is interested, again, we have our donation link at the link in our bio. Also, you can find information regarding our programs there at the link in the bio as well for registration. Keep up with our social media pages for updates on when our next coffee chat is, and we will see you in the next one. Bye for now.
Bye.